The morning sun cast long shadows across the Afghan mountains as Captain Sarah Martinez had performed her pre-flight checks on the sleek F-35 Lightning II. The aircraft's stealth coating gleamed dully in the early light, its angular surfaces designed to slip through enemy radar like a ghost. Sarah had been flying combat missions for 3 years, but today felt different. Intelligence reports suggested heavy Taliban activity in the region where SEAL team operations were scheduled. Sarah's hands moved with practiced precision across the cockpit controls, her mind focused on the mission briefing she had received an hour earlier. The SEALs were conducting a high-priority extraction operation in a remote valley, retrieving a captured CIA operative who possessed critical intelligence about terrorist networks operating along the Pakistan border. What should have been a routine in-and-out mission had already shown signs of complications. The radio crackled to life as her squadron leader's voice filled her helmet. Phoenix 1, this is Eagle Lead. Weather conditions are deteriorating in the target area. Satellite imagery shows increased enemy movement in the surrounding hills. Sarah acknowledged the transmission while reviewing her flight path on the digital display. The F-35's advanced avionics system showed real-time intelligence updates, painting a picture of the battlefield below. Red markers indicated known enemy positions, while blue dots represented friendly forces. The concentration of red markers around the extraction point was concerning. As she taxied toward the runway, Sarah reflected on the weight of responsibility resting on her shoulders. The F-35 was more than just a fighter jet. It was a flying computer equipped with sensors and radar systems that could detect threats from hundreds of miles away. The aircraft's APG-81 AESA radar was considered one of the most advanced in the world, capable of tracking multiple targets simultaneously while remaining nearly undetectable itself. The tower cleared her for takeoff, and Sarah felt the familiar surge of adrenaline as the F-35's Pratt & Whitney engine spooled up to full power. The aircraft accelerated down the runway with surprising smoothness for such a powerful machine. Within seconds, she was airborne, climbing rapidly into the clear morning sky. Below, the base grew smaller as she gained altitude. Sarah could see other aircraft preparing for the day's missions. Apache helicopters, A-10 Thunderbolts, and transport aircraft that formed the backbone of coalition air support. Each pilot understood their role in the complex dance of modern warfare, where split-second decisions could mean the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. As she leveled off at cruising altitude, Sarah's radio came alive with chatter from the ground controllers. The SEAL teams had inserted under cover of darkness, but dawn was revealing their positions to enemy observers in the surrounding mountains. Taliban fighters were already moving to surround the valley, setting up ambush positions along the planned extraction routes. The flight to the operational area took 40 minutes, during which Sarah monitored radio traffic from the ground teams. SEAL Team Alpha had successfully located the CIA operative, but enemy resistance was heavier than expected. Team Bravo was providing perimeter security, while Team Charlie established overwatch positions on the surrounding ridges. The complexity of the operation required precise coordination between all elements. Sarah's first glimpse of the target area revealed the magnitude of the challenge facing the SEALs. The valley was a natural bowl surrounded by steep hills and rocky outcroppings that provided perfect cover for enemy fighters. Narrow roads wound through the terrain, creating choke points that could easily become killing zones. The geography favored defenders, making extraction extremely difficult under the best circumstances. As she established her patrol pattern above the valley, Sarah began receiving urgent radio calls from the ground. SEAL Team Charlie's overwatch position had come under heavy fire from multiple directions. Taliban fighters were using the rocky terrain to move undetected, appearing suddenly to engage the American forces before disappearing back into their hiding places. The situation deteriorated rapidly as more enemy fighters joined the battle. Sarah could see muzzle flashes erupting from dozens of positions around the valley rim. Rocket-propelled grenades streaked across the sky, forcing the SEALs to take cover wherever they could find it. The planned extraction helicopter was still 20 minutes away, but it was becoming clear that the landing zone would be too hot for a safe pickup. Sarah's radio exploded with calls for air support. Phoenix 1, this is Raptor Lead. We're taking heavy fire from the North Ridge. Can you identify enemy positions? Looking down at the chaos below, Sarah could see the SEALs were surrounded. What had started as a 3-team operation had become a desperate fight for survival. Enemy fighters seemed to emerge from every cave and crevice, their numbers far exceeding intelligence estimates. The Taliban had clearly prepared an elaborate ambush, using the captured CIA operative as bait to draw American forces into a carefully planned trap. The F-35's sensors painted a detailed picture of the battlefield, but the rules of engagement required positive identification before engaging targets. In the rocky terrain below, distinguishing between enemy fighters and innocent civilians was nearly impossible from her altitude. Sarah needed better intelligence, but the standard protocols weren't designed for this type of close-quarters urban warfare. As she circled the valley, Sarah realized the full scope of the disaster unfolding below. The SEALs weren't just pinned down, they were completely surrounded by a force that outnumbered them by at least 10-1. Every escape route was covered by enemy fighters positioned in elevated positions with commanding fields of fire. The extraction helicopter would be shot down long before it could reach the landing zone. Commander Rick Morrison's voice cut through the radio chatter with urgent authority. All units, this is ground control. The extraction is compromised. Taliban forces have pre-positioned throughout the valley. We're looking at a potential disaster here. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine as she processed the implications of Morrison's words. 267 elite Navy SEALs were trapped in a valley with limited ammunition and no viable escape routes. The enemy had prepared this ambush with meticulous planning, positioning fighters in caves and bunkers that were invisible from standard surveillance methods. The F-35's standard radar systems could detect vehicles and large groups of fighters, but individual terrorists hiding in caves remained invisible. Sarah knew that somewhere in the aircraft's classified systems lay more powerful sensors, but using them would require authorization from levels far above her pay grade. The bureaucracy of modern warfare often moved too slowly for battlefield realities. Below, the battle intensified as Taliban reinforcements arrived from neighboring villages. Sarah watched in growing horror as hundreds of additional fighters took positions around the valley. The SEALs were vastly outnumbered and running low on ammunition. Their only advantages were training, discipline, and the hope of air support that seemed increasingly inadequate for the situation. Sarah's flight computer chimed softly, indicating an incoming encrypted message from headquarters. The text appeared on her display with chilling clarity. Phoenix 1, be advised that enemy communications intercepts suggest this is a coordinated ambush involving over 800 fighters. Extraction assets are being repositioned, but ETA is now 60 minutes minimum. 60 minutes might as well have been 60 hours for the SEALs fighting for their lives below. Sarah could already see American forces being forced back into increasingly smaller defensive positions. The rocky terrain that should have provided cover was instead becoming a death trap as enemy fighters moved through tunnel systems that intelligence had failed to detect. The weight of responsibility pressed down on Sarah's shoulders as she realized that conventional air support might not be enough to save the trapped SEALs. The F-35 carried precision-guided munitions, but using them in such close proximity to friendly forces would be extremely dangerous. The enemy had deliberately positioned themselves to make air strikes nearly impossible without risking American casualties. As she continued her orbit above the valley, Sarah's mind raced through possible solutions. The F-35's advanced systems included capabilities that went far beyond what was publicly acknowledged, but using them would mean violating direct orders and potentially compromising national security secrets. The choice between following orders and saving lives was becoming increasingly stark with each passing minute. The radio crackled with increasingly desperate calls from the ground. SEAL teams were reporting casualties and ammunition shortages. The enemy was closing in from all sides, using superior numbers and intimate knowledge of the terrain to systematically eliminate American positions. Without immediate and decisive intervention, the battle would become a massacre. Sarah's training had prepared her for many scenarios, but not for this moment when the rules of engagement seemed inadequate for the reality of the situation. 267 American warriors were depending on her to find a solution that didn't exist in any manual or protocol. The clock was ticking, and conventional options were rapidly running out. The morning sun climbed higher in the sky, its light revealing the full extent of the tactical nightmare below. Sarah knew that within the next few minutes, she would have to make a decision that would either save the lives of her fellow Americans or potentially end her military career. The forbidden systems waited silently in her aircraft, their power held in check by regulations that seemed increasingly meaningless in the face of the unfolding tragedy. The radio erupted with urgent calls as SEAL Team Alpha found themselves pinned down behind a crumbling stone wall. Staff Sergeant Mike Rodriguez pressed his back against the rough stones, feeling chips of rock pepper his helmet as enemy rounds impacted inches from his position. The rescued CIA operative, a middle-aged man named David Chun, crouched beside him, his hands shaking from exhaustion and fear. "Phoenix 1, this is Raptor Lead," Rodriguez called into his radio, his voice strained but controlled. "We've got approximately 50 fighters moving up the eastern slope. They're using caves and tunnels we didn't know existed. Our position is about to be overrun." From her vantage point high above, Sarah could see the tactical situation deteriorating by the minute. The SEALs had initially established defensive positions based on satellite imagery and drone reconnaissance, but the intelligence had been woefully incomplete. The Taliban had spent months, possibly years, preparing this valley as a killing ground. Through her F-35 sensors, Sarah watched enemy fighters emerge from hidden positions like ants from a disturbed nest. They moved with disciplined coordination, not the disorganized rabble that intelligence briefings had suggested. These were experienced fighters who understood modern military tactics and had prepared extensively for this confrontation. Team Bravo, positioned on the valley's western edge, reported similar problems. Lieutenant Commander James Walsh observed through his scope as enemy reinforcements poured into the area from multiple directions. "Control, this is Bravo Lead. We're counting at least 200 additional fighters moving in from the northwest. They've got RPGs, heavy machine guns, and what looks like mortars." The trapped CIA operative, Chun, had been gathering intelligence on Taliban financial networks when he was captured 3 days earlier. His rescue was critical because he possessed detailed information about funding sources and weapons smuggling routes that could cripple terrorist operations across the region. But the Taliban clearly understood his value and had prepared an elaborate trap to eliminate both him and any rescue force. Sarah's aircraft systems detected the first mortar rounds as they arced through the air towards SEAL positions. The F-35's advanced radar could track projectiles in flight, providing real-time warnings to ground forces. All ground units, incoming mortars from grid reference 142 to 385. Seek immediate cover. The explosions erupted across the valley floor, sending clouds of dust and debris into the air. Sarah watched in growing anxiety as the coordinated bombardment forced the SEALs to abandon several defensive positions. The enemy was systematically destroying cover and forcing the Americans into increasingly vulnerable locations. Commander Morrison's voice crackled over the command frequency, his tone reflecting the gravity of the situation. "Phoenix 1, we need immediate close air support. The extraction helicopter is still 45 minutes out, but at this rate there won't be anyone left to extract." Sarah's targeting systems identified dozens of potential targets, but the rules of engagement created an impossible situation. Enemy fighters were positioned within 50 meters of SEAL positions, well inside the minimum safe distance for precision munitions. Any airstrike risked killing the very people she was trying to save. "Control, this is Phoenix 1, Sarah transmitted. "I'm seeing multiple targets, but they're too close to friendly forces for standard engagement protocols. I need authorization for danger close operations." The response from headquarters came back with bureaucratic efficiency that seemed divorced from battlefield reality. "Phoenix 1, danger close authorization requires approval from CENTCOM. Stand by for further instructions." Standing by meant watching American warriors die, while paperwork made its way through the chain of command. Sarah felt frustration building as she witnessed the tactical situation collapse in real time. The enemy had planned this ambush with the specific intention of neutralizing American air power through proximity to friendly forces. Below, SEAL Team Charlie found themselves in an increasingly desperate situation. The team had been providing overwatch from elevated positions when Taliban fighters emerged from previously unknown tunnel entrances directly behind their lines. What should have been secure high ground became a death trap as enemy forces attacked from multiple directions simultaneously. Petty Officer First Class Maria Santos pressed herself flat against a rocky outcropping as automatic weapons fire raked the position around her. The team's sniper, Chief Petty Officer Tom Bradley, had already identified 17 enemy positions, but Engaging them would reveal his location to the dozens of other fighters moving through the maze of caves and trenches. Raptor lead. This is Charlie 6, Santos reported. We're cut off from the main force. Enemy has us surrounded on 3 sides, and they're moving up the south face. We got maybe 10 minutes before they overrun our position. The complexity of the tactical situation became increasingly clear as Sarah monitored radio traffic from all 3 SEAL teams. The Taliban had created a carefully orchestrated plan that exploited every weakness in American doctrine. They understood that air power was the decisive advantage in most engagements, so they had positioned their forces to make air strikes impossible. Sarah's F-35 carried a full load of precision-guided munitions for AIM, 120 AMRAAM air-to-air missiles, 2 AIM, 9X Sidewinder missiles, and 2 2,000-pound joint direct attack munitions. The weapons represented the most advanced air-to-ground capabilities in the American arsenal, but they were useless if she couldn't employ them without risking American lives. The enemy's tactical sophistication became evident as Sarah observed their movement patterns. Taliban fighters were using a combination of natural caves, man-made tunnels, and carefully constructed fighting positions that had been invisible to satellite surveillance. They moved through the underground network like a subway system, appearing suddenly to engage American forces before disappearing back into the earth. Intelligence intercepts revealed the scope of the Taliban preparation for this ambush. Sarah's secure communications system displayed translated fragments of enemy radio traffic. Phase 1 complete. American Rescue Force is trapped. Initiate Phase 2. The clinical efficiency of the enemy communications suggested a level of planning that intelligence agencies had dramatically underestimated. The F-35's advanced sensor suite detected movement in areas that appeared empty to conventional surveillance methods. The aircraft's distributed aperture system provided Sarah with 360-degree awareness of the battlefield, but the information only highlighted how outnumbered and outmaneuvered the SEALs had become. Every tactical advantage seemed to favor the enemy. Team Alpha's ammunition situation was becoming critical. Rodriguez counted his remaining magazines while Chun, the rescued CIA operative, shared intelligence that painted an even bleaker picture. They've been planning this for months, Chun whispered during a brief lull in the firing. The whole capture was designed to draw in a rescue force. They know about extraction protocols, helicopter flight paths, everything. The revelation that the enemy possessed detailed knowledge of American tactics explained the precision of their ambush. Sarah realized that conventional approaches would fail because the Taliban had specifically prepared countermeasures for every standard procedure. The SEALs were fighting an enemy who understood their playbook better than many American commanders. Sarah's threat detection systems identified incoming surface-to-air missiles as enemy forces attempted to eliminate her aircraft. The F-35's stealth characteristics and electronic countermeasures defeated the missiles, but the attack demonstrated that the Taliban possessed sophisticated anti-aircraft capabilities. They were prepared for every aspect of American military doctrine. The morning sun continued its climb, casting harsh shadows across the valley that revealed the full extent of the tactical nightmare. Enemy fighters controlled the high ground, had numerical superiority, and possessed intimate knowledge of terrain that American forces were seeing for the first time. The extraction helicopter would face a gauntlet of fire that would make landing impossible. Commander Morrison's voice carried increasing urgency as he coordinated the deteriorating situation from headquarters. All units, be advised that satellite imagery shows additional enemy reinforcements approaching from the east. Estimated time of arrival is 30 minutes. We're looking at potentially over 1,000 fighters converging on your position. The numbers were staggering and represented far more enemy forces than American planners had believed existed in the entire region. Intelligence estimates had suggested Taliban strength of perhaps 200 fighters across several provinces, but the reality was that they had concentrated their forces for this single, decisive engagement. Sarah's aircraft detected the heat signatures of the approaching reinforcements through thermal imaging. Vehicles loaded with fighters were moving across the desert from multiple directions, converging on the valley like spokes of a wheel. The Taliban had committed everything to this battle, understanding that destroying a significant American force would represent a major propaganda victory. The tactical situation was evolving beyond anything covered in standard operational procedures. The SEALs were facing a conventional military assault disguised as an insurgency operation. Enemy forces were employing combined arms tactics, coordinated communications, and strategic planning that matched or exceeded American capabilities in some areas. Sarah's mind raced through possible solutions as she watched friendly forces contract into an increasingly small defensive perimeter. Standard air support protocols were inadequate for the situation. Conventional rules of engagement assumed clear separation between friendly and enemy forces, but the Taliban had deliberately eliminated that separation to neutralize American advantages. The F-35's classified systems represented capabilities that could potentially change the tactical equation, but accessing them would require violating direct orders and potentially compromising national security secrets. Sarah found herself facing a choice between following regulations and saving the lives of 267 American warriors who were running out of time and options. Sarah's hands trembled slightly as she accessed the F-35's classified menu system, her fingers dancing across controls that most pilots never saw in their entire careers. Deep within the aircraft's computer systems lay the APG-85 experimental radar array, a quantum leap advancement over conventional systems that remained officially non-existent. The technology was so sensitive that only a handful of pilots knew of its existence, and fewer still were authorized to use it. The warning messages that appeared on her display were unambiguous. Unauthorized access detected. System lockout initiated. Contact Fleet Command immediately. Sarah's finger hovered over the override button, knowing that pressing it would likely end her career and possibly result in court-martial proceedings. But below, American warriors were dying while she followed regulations written by people who had never faced such an impossible situation. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez felt the stone wall behind him shudder as another RPG exploded nearby. Chunks of ancient masonry rained down on his position, and he could hear enemy voices growing closer as Taliban fighters advanced through the rubble. The CIA operative, Chun, was barely conscious from exhaustion and dehydration, but he managed to whisper critical intelligence between the explosions. The tunnel system, Chun gasped. They've been building it for 2 years. Connects every fighting position. That's why they always know where you are. The revelation explained how enemy fighters seemed to anticipate every SEAL movement, appearing wherever American forces tried to establish defensive positions. Sarah's tactical display showed the grim mathematics of the battle. SEAL ammunition supplies were dropping rapidly, with several teams reporting less than 20% remaining. Medical supplies were critically low, and at least 15 operators have been wounded, with 3 confirmed killed in action. The extraction helicopter was still 30 minutes away, but the landing zone was completely controlled by enemy forces. Lieutenant Commander Walsh's voice crackled over the radio with increasing desperation. Phoenix 1, we need immediate support. Enemy forces are moving through underground tunnels, hitting us from behind our own lines. Conventional airstrikes won't work because we can't see them until they're on top of us. The F-35's standard sensors could detect surface movement and vehicle signatures, but individual fighters moving through underground tunnels remained invisible to conventional surveillance methods. The Taliban had effectively created a 3-dimensional battlefield where American technology advantages were neutralized by terrain and tactics. Sarah's mind raced as she considered the implications of activating the forbidden radar system. The APG-85 used experimental quantum entanglement principles to penetrate solid matter, providing unprecedented visibility into underground structures. The technology was so advanced that its existence was classified above top secret, known only to a select few individuals within the intelligence community. Commander Morrison's voice carried an edge of panic as he processed intelligence reports from multiple sources. All units, be advised that enemy reinforcements are arriving faster than anticipated. Satellite imagery shows convoy vehicles approaching from 6 different directions. Estimated enemy strength is now over 1,200 fighters. The numbers defied everything intelligence agencies thought they knew about Taliban capabilities in the region. The enemy had assembled a force equivalent to a conventional military brigade, complete with heavy weapons, coordinated communications, and sophisticated tactical planning. This was no longer an insurgency operation. It was a conventional military assault designed to destroy American forces through overwhelming numerical superiority. Petty Officer Santos watched through her scope as enemy fighters emerged from a tunnel entrance that hadn't existed on any intelligence map. The Taliban had spent months, possibly years, excavating a complex network of passages that connected natural caves with man-made fortifications. American forces were essentially fighting an enemy that could move unseen through solid rock. Charlie 6 to all units, Santos transmitted. Tunnel entrance confirmed at grid 147 to 392. Multiple fighters emerging with heavy weapons. They've got the entire underground network mapped and fortified. Sarah's threat warning system detected multiple surface-to-air missile launches as enemy forces attempted to clear the skies before the final assault. The F-35 stealth characteristics and electronic countermeasures defeated most threats, but the intensity of enemy fire was increasing rapidly. The Taliban understood that eliminating air support was essential for their plan to succeed. The experimental radar system's activation sequence required biometric authentication and voice confirmation of her identity. Sarah placed her palm on the scanner while speaking her authorization code, knowing that every action was being recorded for future investigation. Captain Sarah Martinez, authentication code Whiskey 7 Alpha Delta, requesting emergency activation of Special Access Program Nightfall. The system hesitated for several seconds while quantum encrypted communications linked her aircraft to classified networks spanning multiple continents. Finally, a computerized voice responded with clinical precision. Authentication confirmed. Warning: unauthorized activation of classified systems carries severe legal penalties. Confirm activation request. Below, the battle reached a critical turning point as enemy forces launched coordinated assaults against all three SEAL teams simultaneously. Rodriguez could hear the distinct sound of enemy boots crunching through rubble as Taliban fighters approached his position from multiple directions. The stone wall that had provided cover was now surrounded, with enemy forces closing in from angles that should have been impossible. Sarah's finger moved toward the final activation button as she watched muzzle flashes erupt throughout the valley. The SEALs were fighting with desperate courage, but training and skill could only overcome numerical disadvantage for so long. Without immediate intervention, the next few minutes would see the complete destruction of American forces trapped in the killing zone. Phoenix 1, this is Raptor Lead. Rodriguez's voice carried the strain of combat as he reported their deteriorating situation. We're down to our last 2 magazines. Enemy forces are within 50 meters of our position. If you've got anything that can help us, we need it now. The weight of command decision pressed down on Sarah's shoulders as she realized that conventional military doctrine had no solution for the tactical nightmare below. The enemy had carefully studied American capabilities and prepared countermeasures that neutralized every standard response. Only the experimental technology hidden within her aircraft offered any hope of changing the tactical equation. Sarah pressed the activation button and felt the F-35 systems surge with power as the quantum radar array came online. The aircraft's computer systems immediately began processing information at unprecedented levels, piercing through solid rock to reveal the true scope of the enemy's underground fortress. What appeared on her display defied every intelligence estimate about Taliban capabilities in the region. The tunnel network was vast, connecting dozens of fighting positions through passages that extended for miles underground. Enemy fighters moved through the system like blood through arteries, emerging at predetermined locations to engage American forces before disappearing back into the earth. The Taliban had essentially created an invisible army that could strike anywhere without warning. More disturbing was the evidence of foreign military assistance visible through the quantum sensors. The tunnel construction showed engineering expertise far beyond Taliban capabilities, with reinforced concrete, ventilation systems, and communication networks that suggested involvement by professional military engineers. This was not a local insurgency. It was a sophisticated military operation supported by unnamed foreign powers. Sarah's enhanced sensors detected weapons caches hidden throughout the underground network, revealing artillery pieces, anti-aircraft systems, and ammunition supplies that could sustain prolonged combat operations. The Taliban had prepared for a battle that could last days or weeks, while American forces carried only enough supplies for a quick extraction mission. The quantum radar also revealed the locations of enemy command centers buried deep beneath the valley floor. Taliban commanders were directing the battle from underground bunkers connected to communication networks that linked the entire tunnel system. The level of coordination visible through the enhanced sensors explained how enemy forces had anticipated every American tactical move. Chief Petty Officer Bradley adjusted his sniper scope as he watched enemy fighters emerge from yet another previously unknown tunnel entrance. Charlie 6, this is Overwatch. I count 30-plus fighters moving through tunnels we can't see. They're going to hit Team Alpha from behind in approximately 3 minutes. The tactical intelligence provided by the quantum radar gave Sarah unprecedented visibility into enemy movements, but translating that information into effective action required split-second decision-making under extreme pressure. The SEALs needed immediate warning about incoming attacks, but providing that information would reveal the existence of capabilities that the enemy wasn't supposed to know existed. Sarah made the calculation that saving American lives took priority over protecting classified capabilities. Raptor Lead, be advised that multiple enemy fighters are approaching your position through underground tunnels. Recommend immediate displacement to grid reference 145 to 388. Rodriguez didn't question how she had obtained intelligence about underground movement that was invisible to conventional sensors. SEAL training emphasized adapting to battlefield realities rather than questioning the source of tactical advantages. Roger, Phoenix 1. Displacing now. The quantum radar revealed something even more alarming as Sarah expanded her scan of the surrounding area. The enemy reinforcements approaching the valley weren't just Taliban fighters. They included foreign military advisors and sophisticated equipment that suggested involvement by major powers seeking to inflict a decisive defeat on American forces. Surface-to-air missile sites hidden in caves throughout the region came online simultaneously, creating an integrated air defense network designed to deny American air support during the final phase of the battle. The Taliban had prepared not just for this single engagement, but for a sustained campaign designed to demonstrate that American military technology could be defeated through superior planning and preparation. Sarah realized that the Forbidden Radar system was revealing far more than just enemy positions. It was uncovering evidence of a carefully orchestrated international conspiracy designed to humiliate American forces and undermine confidence in military superiority. The implications extended far beyond a single battle in Afghanistan to potential shifts in global power balances. The quantum radar's revelations transformed Sarah's understanding of the battlefield as data streams revealed the true scope of the enemy's preparation. The underground network wasn't just a series of fighting positions. It was a sophisticated military installation that had taken years to construct, and millions of dollars to equip. Foreign engineering expertise was evident in every aspect of the construction, from reinforced concrete bunkers to fiber-optic communication networks that connected command centers throughout the region. Sarah's enhanced sensors detected the electromagnetic signatures of advanced radar systems hidden within the cave network. The enemy possessed surface-to-air missile capabilities that rivaled those of conventional military forces, including systems that could track stealth aircraft under certain conditions. The Taliban had transformed the valley into an integrated fortress designed specifically to destroy American air power and ground forces simultaneously. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez led his team through a series of tactical movements based on Sarah's intelligence. But the situation continued deteriorating despite their efforts. Enemy forces seemed to anticipate every American maneuver, suggesting that the tunnel network included observation posts with direct sight lines to most defensive positions. The Taliban had created a battlefield where conventional military advantages were systematically neutralized. Phoenix 1, this is Raptor Lead. Rodriguez transmitted while moving between positions under heavy fire. Your intelligence is keeping us alive, but we're still surrounded. Enemy forces are using the tunnel system to reposition faster than we can react. We need a way to collapse those tunnels or force them to fight on the surface. The quantum radar revealed potential solution as Sarah identified structural weaknesses in the tunnel network. Decades of geological surveys had missed the fact that the underground passages were built partially through unstable rock formations. Precisely placed explosions could potentially collapse significant portions of the enemy's infrastructure, forcing Taliban fighters onto the surface where American air power could engage them effectively. But implementing such a plan required weapons and targeting precision that exceeded the capabilities of standard munitions. Sarah's F-35 F-35 carried joint direct attack munitions designed for surface targets, not underground penetration missions. The experimental nature of the quantum radar extended to targeting systems that could guide weapons through solid rock to impact specific structural points. Lieutenant Commander Walsh coordinated defensive movements as enemy pressure increased from multiple directions simultaneously. The SEALs were fighting a conventional military force disguised as an insurgency, facing tactics and equipment that suggested extensive foreign military training and support. Control, this is Bravo Lead. Enemy forces are employing combined arms tactics with precision that exceeds anything we've seen from Taliban forces. The implications of Walsh's observation extended far beyond the immediate tactical situation. Intelligence agencies would need to completely revise their assessments of Taliban capabilities and foreign involvement in regional conflicts. The enemy force trapped in the valley represented a significant escalation in the sophistication of threats facing American forces worldwide. Sarah's aircraft detected incoming hypersonic missiles as enemy forces activated their most advanced anti-aircraft systems. The F-35 stealth characteristics provided some protection, but the missiles used terminal guidance systems that could track aircraft through electromagnetic emissions rather than radar signatures. The enemy possessed weapons technology that officially didn't exist in Taliban arsenals. The quantum radar revealed the missile launch sites hidden deep within the cave network, but engaging them would require weapons capabilities that weren't supposed to exist on American aircraft. Sarah's F-35 had been equipped with experimental directed energy systems during her last maintenance cycle, but those systems remained classified at levels above her security clearance. Commander Morrison's voice carried increasing urgency as intelligence analysts processed the implications of battlefield reports. Phoenix 1, be advised that enemy capabilities exceed all previous assessments. We're looking at a sophisticated military force with equipment and training that suggests major power involvement. Extract our people by any means necessary. The authorization to use any means necessary was the closest thing to carte blanche that military commanders could provide under current regulations. Sarah interpreted the directive as permission to employ any available systems, including those that technically didn't exist in official inventories. The survival of American forces took priority over protecting classified capabilities. Petty Officer Santos observed enemy movements through the quantum-enhanced intelligence that Sarah provided, but the tactical situation remained desperate despite improved awareness. Charlie 6 to Phoenix 1, your intel is incredible, but we're still outnumbered 20-1. These aren't local fighters. They're operating like a professional military unit with foreign advisors. The evidence of foreign involvement was becoming undeniable as Sarah's enhanced sensors detected communication equipment using encryption algorithms that required supercomputer resources to develop. The enemy possessed technological capabilities that exceeded those of most conventional military forces, suggesting support from major powers seeking to test American responses to asymmetric warfare scenarios. Sarah activated the F-35's experimental directed energy systems, feeling the aircraft's power generation systems surge as exotic matter reactors came online. The technology was so advanced that its existence was denied by every official source, but the weapon systems hidden within her aircraft represented capabilities that could reshape modern warfare. The directed energy array could deliver precisely controlled energy bursts that would appear as conventional explosions to casual observers. The quantum targeting system identified optimal impact points throughout the tunnel network, where focused energy pulses could create cascading structural failures. The underground fortress that had taken years to construct could be eliminated in minutes, but using such weapons would reveal American technological capabilities that enemies weren't supposed to know existed. Chief Petty Officer Bradley provided overwatch as SEAL teams maneuvered based on Sarah's intelligence, but enemy forces continued adapting to American tactics with disturbing efficiency. Overwatch to all units. Enemy commanders are adjusting their tactics in real time. They're learning from every engagement and modifying their approach accordingly. The enemy's adaptive capabilities suggested artificial intelligence assistance that could process tactical information and recommend optimal responses faster than human commanders could react. The Taliban possessed technological support that transformed them from a conventional insurgency into a sophisticated military force capable of challenging American technological superiority. Sarah's threat detection systems identified incoming artillery barges as enemy forces prepared for a final coordinated assault. The quantum radar revealed artillery pieces hidden throughout the cave network, including self-propelled guns that could fire from protected positions before disappearing back underground. The enemy had created a mobile fortress that combined the advantages of fixed fortifications with the flexibility of mobile warfare. The artillery bombardment began with devastating precision as enemy forces targeted every known American position simultaneously. Sarah watched explosions erupt throughout the valley as the SEALs were forced to abandon their remaining defensive positions and retreat toward the center of the valley. The tactical situation was collapsing despite improved intelligence and heroic resistance by American forces. All units, this is Raptor Lead, Rodriguez transmitted while coordinating the fighting withdrawal. We're being forced into the open. Enemy artillery has the entire valley floor targeted. Unless air support can neutralize those gun positions, we'll be completely exposed in approximately 5 minutes. Sarah's experimental weapons systems locked onto artillery positions hidden throughout the cave network, but engaging them would require revealing capabilities that could alter the global balance of power. The directed energy systems could eliminate every enemy position simultaneously, but such a demonstration would announce to the world that American military technology had achieved capabilities that other nations couldn't match. The weight of decision pressed down on Sarah's shoulders as she realized that saving American lives might require revealing state secrets that could reshape international relations. The forbidden systems at her disposal represented technological advantages that defense planners wanted to keep hidden until a potential global conflict made their use necessary. But watching American warriors die while protecting technological secrets seemed like a betrayal of everything she had sworn to defend. The SEALs below were fighting for their lives against impossible odds, trusting that American air power would find a way to save them. Their faith in superior technology and training was being tested against an enemy that had spent years preparing for exactly this type of confrontation. Sarah's finger moved toward the weapons activation controls as she made the calculation that American lives were worth more than technological secrets. The directed energy systems represented capabilities that could eliminate the enemy threat completely, but using them would cross a line from which there could be no return. Once the weapons were employed, their existence could no longer be denied. Sarah's hands moved with deadly precision across the experimental weapons controls as she made peace with the consequences of her actions. The directed energy systems hummed to life with a sound like distant thunder, drawing power from exotic matter reactors that represented the pinnacle of classified American technology. Below, 267 American warriors faced annihilation unless she acted immediately, regardless of the political implications. The quantum targeting system painted precise impact points throughout the underground network, calculating energy requirements and blast patterns with computational power that exceeded most supercomputers. Sarah's finger hesitated for one final moment over the firing control, knowing that this single decision would irrevocably change her life and potentially alter the global balance of power. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez felt the ground shake beneath his feet as enemy artillery continued its devastating barrage. The CIA operative, Chun, had lost consciousness from blood loss and exhaustion, but Rodriguez continued carrying him as the SEAL teams retreated toward their final defensive position. The valley floor offered no cover from the precisely coordinated enemy fire that seemed to anticipate every American movement. Phoenix 1, this is Raptor Lead. Rodriguez transmitted with the calm professionalism that defined elite warriors facing impossible odds. We're down to our final position. Enemy forces are closing from all directions. If you've got anything that can change the tactical equation, we need it now. Sarah pressed the firing control and felt the F-35 shudder as directed energy pulses lanced downward through solid rock to impact structural weak points throughout the tunnel network. The quantum guidance systems ensured that each energy burst struck with pinpoint accuracy, creating cascading failures that propagated through the underground fortress with devastating efficiency. The first explosions erupted from hidden artillery positions as energy pulses overloaded ammunition storage areas buried deep within the cave system. Secondary explosions followed as the carefully constructed tunnel network began collapsing in predetermined patterns, trapping enemy fighters in passages that had become death traps rather than tactical advantages. Lieutenant Commander Walsh watched in amazement as enemy positions throughout the valley suddenly erupted in carefully controlled explosions that seemed to target only military installations while leaving surrounding terrain intact. The precision of the strikes defied every conventional explanation, suggesting weapons capabilities that exceeded anything in known American arsenals. "Control, this is Bravo Lead," Walsh transmitted while observing the systematic destruction of enemy positions. "Unknown aircraft is engaging targets with unprecedented precision. Enemy artillery has been neutralized, and tunnel entrances are collapsing throughout the valley." The quantum radar revealed the effectiveness of Sarah's strikes as enemy communications networks failed and command centers went offline throughout the region. Taliban fighters emerged from collapsing tunnels only to find themselves exposed on the valley floor where conventional air power could finally engage them effectively. The underground fortress that had taken years to construct was being systematically eliminated in minutes. Commander Morrison's voice carried disbelief as intelligence analysts struggled to understand the rapid transformation of the battlefield. Phoenix 1, confirm weapons systems employed. Satellite imagery shows precision strikes that exceed known capabilities of standard munitions. Sarah's response was carefully neutral as she maintained operational security protocols even while violating numerous regulations. "Control, this is Phoenix 1. I am employing all available systems to provide close air support for ground forces. Request immediate extraction aircraft for recovered personnel." The directed energy systems continued firing as Sarah targeted remaining enemy positions with clinical precision. Each pulse was calibrated to achieve maximum tactical effect while minimizing collateral damage, demonstrating technological sophistication that represented decades of classified research and development. The weapons performed flawlessly despite being used for the first time in actual combat conditions. Petty Officer Santos emerged from cover as enemy fire diminished throughout the valley, watching Taliban fighters flee from positions that had seemed impregnable minutes earlier. The systematic destruction of their underground network had eliminated every tactical advantage that the enemy had spent years developing. Charlie 6 to all units. Enemy forces are withdrawing. Repeat, enemy forces are in full retreat. The Taliban's carefully orchestrated ambush had been transformed into a rout as their technological advantages were neutralized by American systems that officially didn't exist. Foreign military advisors abandoned their positions as communication networks failed and command structures collapsed throughout the region. The sophisticated enemy force was reduced to scattered groups of fighters fleeing across the desert. Chief Petty Officer Bradley observed enemy movements through his sniper scope as the tactical situation completely reversed. Overwatch to all units. Enemy command structure has collapsed. Individual fighters are abandoning equipment and fleeing in all directions. The coordinated assault has become a disorganized retreat. Sarah's aircraft detected the approach of extraction helicopters as conventional air support finally became possible with enemy air defenses eliminated. The quantum radar showed scattered enemy survivors throughout the region, but they no longer possessed the equipment or organization necessary to threaten American forces. The underground fortress had been reduced to smoking ruins buried beneath collapsed rock. The extraction proceeded with textbook efficiency as helicopters landed in zones that had been killing fields minutes earlier. SEAL teams boarded aircraft while maintaining security perimeters, but the enemy no longer possessed the capability to contest the American withdrawal. The sophisticated ambush had been defeated by technology that transformed the tactical equation in ways that enemy planners couldn't have anticipated. Rodriguez carried the unconscious CIA operative aboard the lead helicopter while reflecting on the sudden transformation of their tactical situation. The precise airstrikes that had saved their lives represented capabilities that exceeded anything he had witnessed in 2 decades of special operations experience. Phoenix 1, this is Raptor Lead. All personnel successfully extracted. Outstanding work. Sarah felt a mixture of relief and apprehension as she watched the helicopters disappear toward friendly territory. The SEAL teams were safe, but her use of classified weapons systems would inevitably trigger investigations that could end her career and potentially result in criminal charges. She had saved American lives, but the cost might be her freedom. The quantum radar system powered down automatically as Sarah deactivated the experimental systems, But recorded data from the engagement would provide intelligence analysts with unprecedented insights into enemy capabilities and foreign involvement in regional conflicts. The evidence of sophisticated military support for Taliban forces would reshape American understanding of threats throughout the region. Commander Morrison's voice carried a different tone as he processed initial reports from the successful extraction. Phoenix 1. Return to base immediately. Be advised that senior leadership requests your immediate debriefing regarding weapons systems employed during the engagement. The formal language indicated that Sarah's actions had triggered security protocols designed to investigate unauthorized use of classified capabilities. Her decision to save American lives had been successful, but the political and legal consequences were just beginning. The existence of advanced weapon systems could no longer be denied after their employment in actual combat operations. Sarah set course for home base while considering the implications of her actions for American military policy and international relations. The directed energy systems had demonstrated capabilities that could reshape modern warfare, but their existence would force defense planners to reconsider assumptions about technological advantages and strategic deterrence. The successful rescue of the SEAL teams would be classified at levels that prevented public disclosure, but enemy intelligence services would analyze the engagement to understand American technological capabilities. The weapons systems that had saved American lives would also provide adversaries with evidence of advanced technologies that could influence their own military development programs. As her F-35 climbed toward cruising altitude, Sarah reflected on the choice between following orders and saving lives that had defined her actions throughout the engagement. 267 American warriors were alive because she had chosen to violate regulations and risk her career. The decision felt right despite the personal consequences she would face. The morning sun cast long shadows across the Afghan mountains as Sarah flew toward an uncertain future. The forbidden radar system and experimental weapons had saved American lives, but their use would inevitably change her life and potentially alter the global balance of power. She had crossed a line from which there could be no return, but the lives of her fellow Americans had been worth the risk. The radio crackled with routine air traffic control communications as Sarah left the combat zone behind. But she knew that her actions during the engagement would have consequences that extended far beyond a single battle in Afghanistan. The technology she had employed represented capabilities that could reshape international relations and alter the nature of modern warfare itself.